Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to East Central Missouri and the world, and welcome to the James Strong Show podcast number 170. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for making us a part of your day. I appreciate it. This podcast was recorded on the evening of Friday, May the 8th, from the James Strong Studio in western St. Charles County. Lots of strange, unexplained things going on with this whole coronavirus epidemic, this whole COVID-19 disease that's going through the world. Strange things people don't understand. Even the smartest men and women, the doctors, the scientists, they don't understand exactly what's going on. But then things have kind of been that way always. We've never truly understand everything. Things go on. We think it's one thing, it's another. Other things go on, and we haven't the slightest idea as to what it is. We believe that it's not A or B or C, but then we refuse to believe that it could be D or E. Well, if not A, B, or C, why could we rule out D or E? You've heard me talk about this on the show before, but there are certain things that go on in the world that we don't understand. Unexplained phenomena like UFOs, like ghosts, and Bigfoot, Sasquatch, skunk ape. He's known by many different names, and there's a lot of different sightings, thousands of sightings for thousands of years throughout recorded history in 6 of the 7 continents of the world. There have been sightings of some type of creature, man, something. Me personally, I've been on a Bigfoot hunt. Me personally, we didn't see anything. We kind of heard something, but we didn't see anything. And several months ago, I was introduced to an individual who told me a story about an encounter that he personally had in the woods in Missouri, in Reynolds County, Missouri, very rural Missouri, where he came upon what he believed was a bipedal creature, perhaps Bigfoot. Right now, I'd like to introduce my guest. His name is Phil, and we'll use his first name only because Phil is a prominent East Central Missouri businessman who, quite frankly, if some people hear him saying the things that he says tonight, it may hurt his business. And he has a business he's built over the years. He has a family to support, and we can't have that. Phil, welcome to the James Strong Show.
Good evening.
When you told me about your encounter several months ago, I told you, you know what, we have to do something. We have to turn this into a podcast. You agreed? We're both busy people. We're both busy people, but we finally got together. So thank you very much for taking time out of your day to explain what happened to you. And I guess have you told this story to other people in the past? Let me ask that question first.
Maybe just a handful of people that I would really trust to not be impartial to what I was telling them. And I got mixed reviews from them. Some believed it, and I would say about half believed it, and the other half didn't. They thought I was crazy.
And I guess you just tell the story so many times, and you figure you don't need the abuse, so you stop.
Right.
And you say this encounter was in Reynolds County, Missouri.
That's correct.
Okay. If you could, in detail, set the picture, set the stage, explain what you were doing and what you encountered on that evening.
Well, the day started out with a bow hunt. My sons and I had driven down and actually spent the night there in a cabin on the property that belongs to a friend of ours. And it's along the Black River in Reynolds County, Missouri. And as the day progressed, I had moved from where I was hunting earlier in the day to a different area of the property because I had seen several deer cross the river in that one area, but they were way out of bow range. So I relocated for my afternoon hunt. And as the day went on, I kept thinking I was seeing movement on the other side of the river a few hundred yards away from me, but I could never, my focus wasn't there. It was mainly on the side of the river that I was on watching for deer. And from where I was sitting, as I do on many occasions from wherever I'm hunting at, I will get my cell phone out and take photographs just of the surrounding area and jokingly send it to friends of mine that are stuck at work at that day or because they're not out hunting with me or whatever else. And but then nothing more kind of went on that part of the day. Our hunt ended. I'd actually had taken a shot at a doe with about 10 minutes of shooting time left, and my youngest son and I searched the property in the direction that the deer had traveled when it ran away from me. My older son got in his truck and drove to the other end of the property where the direction that we were walking, and from one side of the property to the other is about 1,000 yards. So about 45 minutes of searching, and now it was dark. It was probably about 10 after 7 or so. My youngest son said, "Hey, Dad, do you want me to walk back to your truck with you?" I said, "No, I'm fine. I don't need anybody to walk me back to my truck. I'm a grown man." So my youngest son went and got in the truck with my older son. They took off down the road. I proceeded to walk back up the riverbank towards where the cabin was and where my truck was parked at. And I got about 150 yards from where the cabin was, and I was scanning with my flashlight, just looking at the ground mainly, maybe see if I seen any signs of blood or anything like that.
Still hoping you'd stumble upon the track of the deer.
Right, absolutely. And before when I was still further down, before my son and I separated, when he went to go get in the truck with my older son, there were a pack of coyotes on the other side of the river going crazy. So I thought maybe they got that deer had crossed the river and was wounded, and they got it.
Sure.
Because they'll do that. They're pretty smart, cunning animals, But I noticed when I was getting further back up the property towards my truck, the coyotes quit. I didn't hear any other. Normally, you hear an abundance of wildlife down there during the day and nighttime. I didn't hear any sound at all other than the sound of the river going by, which was very subtle because it's not a very big part of the Black River down there, which is not a real big river to begin with. So when I got about 150 yards from the cabin and I was shining my light around, I had raised my light up and just kind of went across the river. And on the other side of the river from me, there were two big green eyes looking in my direction. My first thought was, it's an owl, but owls have round eyes. Most, predators are lower to the ground. This thing appeared to be much taller. My flashlight was not strong enough to even really make out a silhouette or anything. All I know is these two big green eyes were watching me as I walked up the riverbank, and I kind of just dismissed it. I tried to not think about it too much. I wasn't going to let myself get worked up about it. Been in the woods many times, hunting, fishing, camping, very remote places. So about the time now I'm about 100 yards from the cabin, and I'm directly across the river from where these eyes are at. Again, I can't make out anything but two big green eyes. Well, there's like a little stone bluff that kind of goes up to what would be the yard of the cabin. When I brought my flashlight around to locate the steps to walk up, a rock about the size of a softball hit the water about 10 feet away from where I was at. And scared the crap out of me, I immediately pulled my sidearm off and yelled out, "What WTF? What the bleep?" Out loud, I yelled. But I had the distinct feeling that I was supposed to get out of there, that I wasn't supposed to be there. And I did not run, but I walked at a very fast pace, looking over my left shoulder, focused on watching these eyes, which during about a minute and a half that I was focused on the eyes, I seen them blink several times.
So you knew these weren't reflectors off of an automobile or anything like that.
No, there's nothing on that side of the river but forest.
Mm-hmm.
So I hightailed it up the hill to my truck. My windshield was completely frosted over because that morning it had rained, and I had hung some of my hunting gear in my truck to dry out. And I guess my windshield got frosted up on the inside. I started my truck, my van. I walked to the back of my van, looked around with the flashlight one time. I jumped in the truck, and I slung gravel all the way till I hit the blacktop. And sped down the highway to where the filling station was that my sons were stopping at. And they immediately knew that something was wrong when I pulled in the parking lot because I was so worked up. And I told them what had just happened. They were kind of in disbelief, but at the same time, they believed my story because we had my oldest son and I had a previous experience down there in January of 2017. It was 4 o'clock in the morning, and it was -12 wind chill. For some ungodly reason, we thought it was a good idea to be in the woods bow hunting when it was that cold outside. I had gotten out of my son's truck and started a fire. There's a stone fire pit in the yard of the property. I got out to start a pot of coffee, and a boulder, I'm going to guess about the size of a basketball, was thrown into the river, which immediately got my attention because it was totally unexpected. So,
well, now again, this terrain around here it can be rather hilly. There can be bluffs. Could this have been just a stone that worked its way loose and went down the hill and fell into the river?
Right along that stretch of the river, there's no banks that are steep or bluff-like at all. It's either gravel bar or trees.
So it couldn't have been something that just happened by accident. It had to be something that was purposely done.
Right. And it actually, the boulder, when it hit the river, there below the water line, there are some large rocks in the water right in the area that it hit. And it hit closer to the bank on the side of the river that I was on than the other side of the river. The other side of the river is very flat, mostly gravel bar, and it goes from that into woods. And the base of the hill that starts on the other side is probably at least 40 yards from the tree line. So there's no way that any rock or anything came from that side of the river, like rolled down the hill and fell into what I believe the rock was thrown into the river.
So just to try to set a picture for our audience, those that don't know the Black River in that part of the state, it's not a real wide river, and in many parts it's not a real deep river, and in many parts the bottom is bedrock. Correct?
Correct.
Right. So what you're saying is you heard the splash and then the slap of the rock after it hit the water, and then came down and hit the bottom of the riverbed.
That's correct.
So
yeah, the thump from it, my son was in his Jeep probably 40, 50 yards from the edge of the river, parked on the gravel driveway that's by the cabin, and he felt the thud from inside his truck and even asked me what that was, because I did not have a firearm with me at the time. I didn't bring one with me, and I ran to his truck and asked him if he brought a gun with him, and he said, no, what the hell was that? I said, a big rock just got thrown in the river.
Now, could this have been kids playing a joke based on the size of the rock? Because you're saying was a pretty big rock.
Yeah, by the sound of it, I'm going to guess it was about the size of a basketball.
Which is extremely heavy, probably 100 pounds or more.
At least 100 pounds or more, yeah.
Which is not something.
I'm a pretty strong guy, and I would have trouble throwing a 100-pound stone more than about 10 feet. And this thing had to travel a pretty good ways to get where it landed at in the river.
That's just amazing. You had to have been terrified.
Very confused. I actually grabbed a flashlight, got brave enough to run down to the edge of the riverbank and try to scan around and see if I seen anything, because there was actually a fairly decent moonlight at that time. But I did not see anything at all that evening or that morning.
So these were two incidents where you saw the big green eyes, you heard noises, Then you heard absolutely nothing.